The Perimeter with Adam Morrison is proudly presented by Owens Farms Piedmontese.
Let me share a local Spokane secret that everyone needs to know about. Owens Farms Piedmontese beef. Trust me when I say this. You cannot beat this meat. It's tender. It's flavorful. It's some of the best beef you'll ever put into your mouth, period. And to top it off, when you eat it, you can say goodbye to the meat hangovers. That's because Piedmontese beef is lean and has much less cholesterol than your typical supermarket beef. It's a new year. It's time to start living your life with no regrets. Go to ofp.farm to reserve your half or whole order of premium Piedmontese beef today. There's only a limited amount of Owens Farms Piedmontese beef available, so make sure you don't miss out. Go to ofp.farm today. The Perimeter with Adam Morrison is produced independently and locally in Spokane, Washington by Spokast Studios. Our city, our stories. Visit www.spokast.com to learn more about how you can start your very own podcast today. Thank you to Jinx Universe and Position Music for letting The Perimeter use the song Let's Do It Again from Jinx's album, Make It Look Good.
The Perimeter with Adam Morrison is brought to you in sponsorship with Delicious Hamburgers. Did you know Delicious Hamburgers and Fries are the freshest in Spokane? Their hamburgers are never frozen, and that's because it tastes better. There's not even a freezer in the restaurant. Their fries are always made to order and never sit under a heat lamp. Its differences like this you can truly taste. Next time you're craving the freshest hamburgers and fries, head to the corner of Augusta and Division and ask for the Perimeter Combo. A triple delicious hamburger with grilled onions, pickles, and special sauce. It also comes with fries and your choice of a milkshake. Delicious. Taste the difference.
Let me introduce you to the Spokane Workers Co-op, a locally based worker-owned holding company whose mission it is to increase access to living wages, workplace democracy, and autonomy, and to create the sort of lifelong career trajectories that are increasingly uncommon for the majority of people in America. The worker owners of SWC, regardless of which business they work, are equal co-owners of the entire holding company, providing them not just direct ownership of the fruits of their own labor, but ownership in a diversified and resilient portfolio of businesses dedicated to serving Spokane and the Inland Northwest. SWC also buys traditional businesses. SWC buys traditional businesses like LLCs, partnerships, and sole proprietorships, for example, from owners who are ready to retire and who want to make sure the employees who help them build their business are taken care of after the owner leaves. Learn more at www.spokane.coop. And if you're an owner interested in talking about selling, email SWC at team@spokane.coop. That is team@spokane.coop.
Let's do it again. Let's do it again. Turn up the 10. Let's do it again. Let's do it again.
Welcome to Season 2, Week 8, Episode 8 of The Perimeter, sponsored by Owens Farms Piedmontese. I got Brennan, the producer, with me. Happy New Year, everybody. 2023 came in, and Gonzaga's been on a nice little run here. We're going to recap some of the games. Montana, obviously, and then Pepperdine game. We're going to leave the Eastern Oregon out of there. 72-point win or something like that. Everybody says it's the biggest win in Gonzaga history, but I don't count it because it's not a D1. So I think 61's the biggest one that they had against a D1 opponent. So yeah, it's one of those deals where I think it's okay to omit that game.
Yeah, they don't count D2 wins as like biggest ones ever, like in record books, I guess.
Yeah,
so.
Yeah, because they set the record, air quotes, for field goals made, field goal percentage, blah, blah, blah. But it's like, if it's not against a D1 opponent, it's hard to...
Right.
And it was a weird time to have that game because we took 5 days off, and then we had another 3 going into the Pepperdine game, which is the opener for WCC play. So Coach Few didn't want to take 10 days off, 8 to 10 days off, wherever it was going to be. But then everybody else locally or a team that could come in was starting their league, Idaho, Eastern, even like another Big Sky team was opening their league, Idaho State. Like you can just go down the line. So like we kind of had to get a game in Eastern Oregon. God bless them, was the only one that come up. So I can see why people are a little bit upset. It's like, why are we playing them? That should be a preseason game, legitimate, But that's why we had that game, to get a tune-up. And there was also some good things that happened. Obviously, Efton Reed got to play, went 8 for 8. Every guy that played scored, even a couple walk-ons. Dominic Harris got some run, too, as well as a reserve guard who's been out of the rotation that you might need down the stretch. So, but I don't need to give my analysis of that game. That's about enough. But the Montana game was interesting because I think some people around the area understand Montana's a good program. They have been the last 5-6 years. I mean, a team that wins 18 to 22 games a year usually picked on top of their conference and usually makes it to their conference tournament final. And it was no different this year. Team with a lot of experience, had a lot of older guys, well coached. Played the first half, controlled the tempo, up 8. But then in that second half, it was kind of close throughout that second half. When I watch those games, I always kind of chuckle a little bit when people are kind of get upset or just are wondering what's wrong with our team. It's like, well, Montana's is good, and we've talked about the theme of this a little bit on this show. Is we're good this year, obviously, but we're not like super lethal that we've been in the last 5-6 years. Doesn't mean we're not good. I mean, we're 8th team in the country or whatever, and 8th or 9th in the rankings right now, but we don't have the ability that we've had in years past to go on multiple 10-0, 15-0 runs to blow a team out by 30. It's just not who we are. Doesn't mean we can't win big games. Doesn't mean we can't score a lot. I mean, we're shooting 52% from the field, scoring 85.5 points a game. That's before the Pepperdine game, 38% from 3. So it's like, our offense efficiency is still top 10 in the country, but we just don't have the ability to kind of wax teams and blow them out. That Montana game was no surprise to me. I knew they were well coached. I talked about it on air during our broadcast for the radio. It's kind of a semi-rivalry game in the sense, not a rivalry, but local game, and those always are scary in the sense that, if you play in Eastern or you play in Idaho or you play even in Wazoo, all those guys are tired of hearing about Gonzaga. It's all they write about in the Spokesman and local, and it's on the news. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm, yeah.
So you run into the fact that you're gonna run into a team that's kind of ticked off and excited to play you, and kind of want to prove a point. Blah blah blah. So, obviously Missoula is a 3.5 hour drive. There's a lot of fans here. Great football program. So I think those type of games are scary, and the scoreline didn't surprise me. We ended up winning by 10. We had to make plays down the stretch. Drew Timme had a monster game, 12 of 16 from the field, 32 points, 7 defensive rebounds, 11 total, 8 assists. Played fantastic. So, it's been interesting to see, Kent State, Montana was similar teams of that. Probably should make the NCAA tournament, won't get in that large bid, but probably should win their conference. Super skilled, well coached, great game plan, good enough players to keep you at bay. But that was a good win for us, and hopefully Montana could continue to play well for their own. They missed the tournament last year, but they're a good program. Like I said, I think the average wins in the last 5 years was 18 to 22. So like that's a winning program, and when I say 18 and 22, a lot of times those type of programs have to go out and play some games they're probably going to lose early. You know what I'm saying? Or go play in holiday tournaments where you're probably outmatched and you might have to put 2 or 3 or 4 losses on your resume. It's just how it is, and it pays bills too. You know what I mean? So
Yeah, for sure.
when I look at some of these teams that come in and you look at the record, sometimes you always have to kind of put an asterisk by it, because it's like Texas Southern we always play. What's the former Indiana coach? Anyway, he used to.
Oh, Bob Knight?
Bob Knight. Anyway, his name's escaping me, but he took over at Texas Southern, and every year they'd play 13 or 14 straight road games to float their program. So they'd lose. I mean, a couple of years they were like 0-13, and then they'd always make the NCAA tournament because they were good.
Because they're just playing a really hard schedule.
Yeah, they always had to play like Kentucky, then they come play us, and then they go play. You know what I mean? And literally never played at home. So like sometimes you can, if you just do first glance drive by and look at a team, if you look at their records, but you really have to do a little, a semi deep dive and look, okay, who have they played? What's their record last year? Who's the returners? And Montana was exactly that. So to me, that was a good win. And I always talk about there's so much value in having games that where you have to make plays down the stretch and you have to make plays under nerves. You know what I mean? So there's so much value in that. And Montana was that type of win. Like I said, Drew played fantastic in that game. Julian had a good game, 4 or 5, 15 points, 10 rebounds. He's doing an excellent job rebounding the basketball this season. So really impressed with that win. That was before Christmas, I believe, if my memory serves. Yeah, it was before Christmas. And then we come back, play Eastern Oregon. We already talked about that. Then we get into WCC play. It was kind of odd. Us and Pepperdine were we played our opener, but we were still a game behind. We had the bye to start, which I think is kind of odd that we get the bye the first week and we win the league. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
and I think that's some of the issue with, the WCC compared to other conferences. It feels like it's not like we'd ever get the shaft, but they'd never give us the rewards that we deserve.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, for sure.
It's like, why do we get the 2 weeks that you get for a bye? We have to use it the first week of the season. And it's like, all right, thanks. So basically we get one. So anyway, Pepperdine comes to town, super talented team. As always, Lorenzo Romar stays at Washington in his days at St. Louis. And then obviously at Pepperdine's second stint, always been able to recruit. Got a lot of talent. Came to the games, I think 7-6, and was, a game where it's always funny when you play Pepperdine, and we always kind of laugh about it. It's like you never know what you're going to get. You're going to get again. You're going to play against really talented players. Colby Ross, years past, their all-time leading scorer. I think their all-time leading assist guy. Probably sniffing around somewhere in some, competitive league. He's playing somewhere. This is my point. He's like professional basketball player. Could be in the G League, like good player.
Yeah. And
then the Edwards brothers, one of them was on the Brooklyn Nets roster and actually was in their rotation last year, like good player. So they had like professional players, but sometimes you'd go into a game and be like, all right, these guys could score like 30 each, or they could score 15 and you're going to win by 40. Like you never know what you're going to get. So you have to be like uber prepared. But they kind of just roll the ball out there, and it's always fun to watch and call, but also you kind of like laugh because you're like, man, these guys got a lot of talent and they don't win a lot of games, or they can't string together winning seasons. Same thing with this team this year. They have this kid, Lewis, fantastic. They call him, I think he's last time I checked his draft boards, they had him in the top 20, which made sense. I'd never seen him yet. He left. The story is just kind of odd. He left prep school a year early to go hire a workout guy in LA, and he just worked out for a season. And then last year he played as a freshman, but didn't play as much, got kind of hurt. So it's been like a weird story for a kid like that.
Yeah. Yeah, it says, he's a definitely a lottery pick. That's what they're saying. But yeah, it was that's interesting that he just worked out for a season.
Yeah, like it's one of those where, and maybe I'm gonna go on a rant, but I've been like, some kids always declare early and then they leave high school early. I'm always just like, man, isn't that one of the funnest times of your life when like your last half of your senior year with your friends? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, not everybody's high school experience is great, but like you think it would be for like a high profile jock, you know? See? And then like, don't you want to hang out with your buddies? And like spring, my senior year was like, we're drinking a lot and having fun. You know what I mean? Like season was over, everybody knew they were going to college or they were doing trade school, whatever. Like we were like partying. Like,
I feel like like it's
saying?
become like a business for some kids.
I know.
Like, they just like,
that's my point.
It's too serious.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's like, so that extra 3 months is really going to make a huge difference.
Right.
You know, like leaving early, like graduating early. You know, Ben Gregg did that. And I understand that made more sense because there was the COVID year and he didn't have a season. But I'm still sitting there like, don't you want to like go to prom and do all that shit?
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like hang out with your buddies and chase girls your last time, whatever. You know what I'm saying? But everybody's high school experience is different. I had a good time. My friends I had a collected group of friends, blah, blah, blah. So like we partied, you know what I mean? But like after season was like one of the funnest times because you had shit else to do. It's spring, it's nice. But anyway, that Lewis kid, you know, high level, averaging 19 and a half, had, I think, let me see the box, you know, like 20 even, but he only played, I think it was 21 minutes, got in foul trouble, but looked all the part of an NBA player. 9 of 14 from the field, 2 of 3 from downtown, 5 rebounds, 5 assists. Did have 5 turnovers, but quick twitch athletes. He looked 6'7", 6'8", long. You know, it's weird. How do I say this? You say it in the right way, but like you can look at guys' bodies and you can kind of tell if they're like an NBA type body. He had an NBA type body, like big calves, big trunk. You know what I'm saying? Like as far like athletic, big ass hands. Like it was like, oh, that looks like an NBA player, and he definitely showed it. He was fantastic. I was upset on the broadcast that he picked up his 3rd foul in the first half. I wanted him to stay on the floor because he was a joy to watch. He started the game 3 of 3 with some fadeaways. He had a backdoor dunk. He had 2 backdoor dunks. And then the second half, he had step back threes over Julian. Apparently him and Julian were friends, knew each other. So it was kind of fun watching them match up. And then I was trying to compare, like, this is what, you know, Julian tried to do the draft thing. And so like, this is what NBA players look like. So it was a pretty good matchup, and they both, you know, had solid games. But I mean, he was fantastic. It was really fun to watch. And then the Porter kid, the freshman, had 17 for them. Story on him, Michael Porter Jr., the kid that plays for the Nuggets. He's the last of 4, I think, of the brothers, and they're all playing Division I basketball or pro basketball somewhere. And I think there's 2 sisters or 2 cousins that are playing somewhere as well. And it's just like, holy shit, like what a lineage, you know what I mean? Like of all playing Division I basketball. One's playing in the Nuggets. He's playing at Pepperdine. I think one's playing at University of Denver. And then I think the 2 sisters or cousins are played at Missouri. So it's like, who the fuck, like,
wow.
You know what I mean? Like that's crazy. I mean, everybody's heard stories of, you know, athletic families, but that's like all Division I players, and then one in the NBA that just signed a $100 million contract or whatever. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
On a contender. It's pretty wild. Well, the kid played well. He was 7 of 12, had 17 points, looked good, tall, athletic. You know, then their Mitchell kid, the off guard, was good. He had 13, and then Millette, the point guard as well, was good, had 11. But they cannot play defense to say their life. I mean, Gonzaga scores 111, scores 56 in the first half, 55 in the second. And I think I counted on the broadcast, we had 6 layups after they scored, which is awful. If you're talking about you score, they take it out, have to throw it in, and then throw it up. We had 6 like fucking layups. That means like you don't get back, you don't give a shit. Like it was comical. I was like, holy shit, man. Like, come on, guys. Like from a Pepperdine standpoint.
It looked like they were just trying to match Gonzaga in like shots. Like they weren't playing defense.
No,
and they weren't playing double teaming Drew either.
Yeah, I was just about to get into that. Obviously Drew's fantastic, and I'm going to go into him. You know, he's got a chance to break all the records at Gonzaga, and it probably will. But I still shake my head, and this is not like a recipe to beat us. It's just an observant from a fan and somebody who knows basketball. It's like, why the fuck would you single coverage like one of the best all-time scorers in probably the last 10 years, like back to the basket scorers in college basketball? Like I see it every night, and I like chuckle. I'm like, so you think your kid that's not very good, or I shouldn't say not very good, but like you think a guy that is probably just going to play college basketball can guard one of the best all-time back to the basket scorers in the last decade.
Right.
And nobody tries to double team. Like you should have a double team package always as a, like start of the season, you have a double team package. Like you put it in, like that's normal. You have a blue, we just call blues big to big. You have a white where you come off a wing defender, either the strong side or you pick somebody out who's a shitty 3-point shooter. You have a black where you double team from the bottom side. Like it's all pretty simple. Red is a one. I think red's the one where whoever makes the entry pass, you go double from the strong side. White's the one where you double off you pick out a guy who's shitty on the perimeter, and whenever it goes in, you double off of him, and then they make their rotation, and you gamble on him missing shots. And I just sit there and I'm just like, how the fuck are you sitting here and just letting him catch at 8 feet, 4 feet, turn, layup, jump hook? I mean, obviously he's making moves and skill, but it's just like, I don't understand it. It's comical. And I love Lorenzo Romar. I think it's a great coach, great recruiter. But I sit there and I'm just like, man, this guy has so much talent every year, and they just cannot figure out the defensive end, just ever. And, he figured it out at Washington. So, it's not like I don't know what it is in Malibu if they just don't feel like fucking playing defense. It's just hanging out. But, I mean, obviously some of it had to do with us that game. But there was a stretch there in the second half. It looked like a glorified pickup game. I mean, both teams just fucking two-pass layup. And I see Coach Few just steam coming out of his ears, but we're up 20, so he's like, all right, but it was interesting. But going into Drew, moved into fourth on the all-time scoring list, moved past Lish Harris, Matt Santangelo, Pangos before that. It's going to break mine at third. I think he's like 8 points away, so you can do it next game. Knock on wood. And yeah, so it's fantastic. In that Pepperdine game, 15-19, like I said, I mean, like fucking layups. 1 or 2 from downtown, 10 rebounds, 5 assists, 35 points. Probably could have had 40. They left him in. They took him out with like 4 minutes to go. He had a chance too. He was at 34, 33 with like 8 minutes to go. And they took him out for his normal break. And I thought they were going to leave him out, and then they made a run back. And so he got back in. I was like, oh shit, he has a chance to get a 40 burger at home. I think I'm the only guy that's done one. And it's not me bragging, but it's just, I think the only guy that's gotten, no, Roney did it the first time, and then I did it the second. I think I got 41 against Portland. He had 40 against Idaho, I think my sophomore year. Yeah, had to been my sophomore year. Anyway, so he'd be like the third guy, or could have broke the scoring, the building scoring record, which is kind of cool to have. I thought he was going to get there. But yeah, it's pretty fascinating to see a lot of these records just go by the wayside. I think he's top 8 now in rebounding. And Brian Michelson made a good point, because I was thinking, all right, well, let's be fair here. How many games has he played? Blah, blah, blah. You always kind of do that with when you go against scoring. And the same with assists. Like when Perk beat it, I went and looked at the games. I can't remember how many more games he played than Santangelo, but it's a fair thing to look at, you know what I'm saying? And then you do Santangelo to Stockton, because back then they didn't play as many games, and they didn't obviously go to the fucking NCAA tournament. And,
right.
You know what I mean? That adds up. I mean, if you add 2 or 3 more games a year times 4, right? Sometimes you're 10 to 12 more games. That's a lot more assists, chances you get for records and points and what have you. But Brian Michelson made a very good point. He's like, he missed 12 games during his COVID year. They just got
yeah.
rid of him.
Yeah, for sure.
So I think he will break my record and will be close on number of games. So like my point is like Drew has had an illustrious scoring deal and it hasn't been based on number of games, if that makes sense.
Right.
Because I'm trying to give him his credit.
Yeah, the point you're trying to make is you played 3 seasons.
I played 3 seasons,
and
exactly.
he's played 4, but he's missing about almost a half a season in there.
Yes. So he's 3.5.
3.5, yeah.
3.5. But they've also done twice. They've done 6. No. Once he's played 6 extra games in the NCAA tournament. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So like you got to add him up. But Brian Michelson brought it up to me, and we were just talking about it. I was like, yeah, I didn't even think about the COVID year. He got screwed on 12, 13, 14 games or whatever it was. So fantastic career for him. It's going to be cool. It's going to be really interesting if he gets the Frank Burgess number. I think he's close, or he's on pace to have a chance. It'll just be interesting to see how these WCC teams play him. Because again, like it's fun watching him kick the shit out of guys. Trust me, I love when guys are. But I just look down at the other end. I'm just like, are you not watching the same shit I'm watching? Like he's gonna bust the shit out of the guy that you have thinking you can single coverage him.
Right.
He just is, and he spins off angles and stuff. And so like I just never understand where they don't double or they don't front or nothing. I mean, obviously high low, we're good at that. He's really good at angles, but it was comical in that Pepperdine game where he just literally caught it, and the Basham kid ended up having a nice game, but it's just not that level of player defensively. And he's just like 2 dribbles, layup. You know what I mean? Like literally like, 4-foot jump hook. Oh, I've made 10,000 of these. Oh, here's 10,001.
Right.
Left hand. Okay. You know, like it was just like
he was put on a clinic in that game. He had 25 in the first half, and then I started looking at the single game record, and I was like, well, if he does another 20 in the second half, like
you'll get it.
He could pass Wiltshire's 45, but it slowed down, but it was impressive to watch.
Yeah,
it was fun.
No, he's a clinical at angles. Obviously, his touch is one of the best we've ever seen. That's why his outside shooting is so wondrous. Why he can't shoot it better from the outside, because his touch is so good.
Yeah,
and that's not a knock. It's just look at his numbers. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
because he has the best hands we've ever seen at Gonzaga inside. No, it's not even close. In his touch. So yeah, I was laughing. I'm just like, fuck, these guys are so dumb. They can't even guard. You know, like what are they doing? But yeah, he's close. Like I said, he'll break my record or my spot on the number 3. And then Jim McPhee is next, and then Frank Burgess. Here's the big question, and it was brought up to me too. Obviously, you know, Frank's is the record holder, but they were NAIA at the time. So I think it'll be interesting how they view the all-time record. You know what I'm saying? Compared to other guys and ball, because it's some of the records are, you know, back then were different. But NAIA was better back then, if that makes sense. It was more spread across.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? Like example of what I mean by that. It's like, if you won an NIT championship in like the 40s and 50s, you actually were like the best team. Like the NIT championship was better than the NCAA tournament.
Right.
But then it flipped, obviously. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So like sometimes the records are like, well, yeah, maybe, you know, the NAIA records are actually legit because it wasn't better, or it was like NBA versus ABA. Really close.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Frank Burgess has 2,196 points, and Drew Timme is 335 points shy of that right now.
Can you do the quick math? How many games left are there?
They're
11 and 3.
11 yeah, so
14. So
he has to probably average about 35 points a game. Mate.
No, less.
Less than that. Yeah, you're right.
He's going to be like in the upper 20s, obviously. You could get there because then if you count the NCAA, if they make a deep run, and let's say they get.
Yeah. It's 20 points. If they have 16 more games this season, which I definitely think they have more than 16 games, it would be 21 points a game.
Oh, yeah. That's where he's at right now. He's at like 22.
Yeah.
So he should get it.
He should. Crazy. Yeah, that is crazy. Yeah, where does he stack up all time? Like, do you think he'll be? Someone said, "What do you think about Timmy being one of the greatest Zags of all time?"
He will be.
Yeah, like
it's no question.
Yeah, for sure.
He's gone to a national championship game, Sweet 16, and then the year before, I think Elite 8, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, so yeah,
and he missed a year with the COVID. I mean, like the COVID year didn't go to the tournament. So
yeah, and then like okay. I can't remember if he won the league MVP last year. I'm assuming he did. Do you know that?
I don't know that off the top of my head, but I believe he did.
I believe he did. So then if he plays good this year, he'll win it again. That would be 2. If he wins a tournament MVP, that would probably be 2. He'll be all league probably 3 years, and I'm assuming he was all league, all freshman.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he was all freshman. He was all WCC 21, 22. WCC Player of the Year 22, Karl Malone Award last year, and then consists second team All American. And I think this is preseason. And nope, he was consistent second team last 2 years, All American, yeah. So.
Yeah, of course, he'll be like one of the all-time greats easily.
Yeah,
I would just say that even without the accolades, like as far as just the play, I mean. He's got like some of the best touch I've ever seen. Like honestly, I mean, he's like Kevin McHale as far as like moves and slippery shit and just kind of getting a shot off and scoring in different ways. So yeah, it's going to be interesting. I think nobody's even like thought about that at the start of the year. It wasn't on my radar too. It was like, oh shit, he's going to get close to the fucking records, like the big ones. You know? So yeah, congrats to him. He's been on a tear, been fantastic this season, and just like I said, it'd be interesting to see some of these WCC teams do defensively against him. But he's only had one bad game this year. It was against Baylor, and I don't think it was a bad game. It was just how they played him defensively. Kind of he kind of had to just defer to everybody else. But they double teamed.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? It was just like, okay.
Do you think one of the reasons why some teams don't double team them, they don't want to get in foul trouble? And
it's a combo of things. That's a good question. There's many schools of thought on why you don't do it. Sometimes you go into a game, and if a guy is their main horse, sometimes other coaches are like, all right, if we just hold him to his numbers, but we chip away at Julian Strother, Nolan Hickman, whomever else, and hold them below their numbers, we're fine. Because sometimes you just like, well, I can't stop this guy, but we can't let him go nuts. You know what I'm saying? There's that school of thought. So sometimes you're like, all right, go ahead and get yours, but we're going to take away some of your quote unquote lesser players that we think we can take away. The other school of thought, especially with a traditional Gonzaga team, I mean, we shoot 38%, like I mentioned, from 3, so we're deadly enough. 40 is the number, but as a team, if you're above 35 with volume, it's not bad. Is when you double team, if you move the basketball, you're going to get wide ass open shots. Then also, we've shown in the past of diving and getting layups out of double teams. So there's that. Like, you don't want to give up strip wide ass open threes. The other one is foul trouble. The other one is maybe you don't think you have the personnel to do it correctly. You know what I'm saying? I mean, sometimes coaches, you sit there and watch games, and I'm guilty of it too. And it's like, well, why the fuck do I do that? And you're like, well, you're not in the locker room. You don't know what the coach is like. The coach knows most likely at that level, like every strategic option. Sometimes you just don't have the personnel to do it. You're not going to say it out loud. You're not going to throw your guys under the bus, but you're also going to be like, why don't you guys press? We're like, what if I have a slow fucking team?
Yeah.
Or guys that can't cover the floor. They just can't, and it doesn't mean they're bad players, but like when we press, it's probably going to put us at a worse advantage. You know what I'm saying? Something like that. So, again, I'm not just hammering teams, but also like I'm always the big believer of like try something, but anyway, and yeah, he's gonna get up to that all-timer, no question. I mean, if you go through the bigs, I mean, who would you put as better than him? The only guy you would put as like a better big is like Domus, but he was only here 2 years. Mm-hmm. So that's where that's what always kind of gets hard.
Yeah.
Is because you're like, well, talent-wise, obviously Domus is going to play 14 years, and then Kelly's going to play fucking 15 years. Mm-hmm. So are they more talented than Drew? Probably. I don't know Drew's future, right? And he has a chance to play in the league, and he has a chance to play overseas, wherever. Mm-hmm. Okay, he does. But, I mean, we know what those guys are doing, but their numbers are nowhere close to what Drew has done. And they weren't getting the volume of touches and because they weren't as good, quote unquote, right?
Yeah.
Right? But also, like, I mean, Domus is like a all league all-star in the NBA, and then Kelly's fucking played 10 plus years, and he's going to continue to play because he can shoot the fucking three. He's big. He's a good player. You know what I mean? Like, Kelly's going to play a long time. Mm-hmm. Huge body, can stretch the floor. He could play for a week, and then they could tell him to sit for 5 days. Won't say anything, and then they'll be like, "Oh, we need you again," and he'll be ready to go. Same with Domus. Mm-hmm. So like that's the argument that's always tough. But if you're just going strictly, okay, who has been here? Like you put him up against who? Like Casey, better than Casey. I love Casey, but Casey Calvary's got a lot of records, but he played 4 years. Mm-hmm. Roney, same thing. Records are not even close for Roney, but Roney like changed the dynamic. I can go a whole fucking show about it. How he changed the program, blah, blah, blah. Changed everything. Rim protection, like gave us an entity we've never had, blah, blah, blah. And then,
I mean, the only other big I can.
I mean, Rob Sacre ended up playing the league, but he's better than Rob, and I love Rob. Rob's one of my best friends, but he's better than Rob.
I mean, Shimmick, but like Shimmick was a different type of.
Oh no, you got to go back to the basket.
Back to the basket, yeah.
Shimmy would be the only comparison, but his numbers are not even close to Drew's. I mean, he's better than Petrusev. You know what I'm saying? It's like you just keep thinking, like, rattling off guys. Better than Corey Violet. He's better than JP Batista.
Yeah.
JP was good, too. I mean, these are all good players. Yeah, I mean, it's like...
I think the consistency, too, like, it's just...
Yeah. That's what this consistency and efficiency. And I know it sounds funny, but like you always look at his stat lines. It's like, fuck, he went 12 of 16. Like, geez.
Yeah.
And usually, like when he misses, he smokes a layup, and it happens, or he takes I think he gets bored and he takes those fadeaways because he's kind of bored and fuck it, I'll just let one rip.
Yeah.
I've been there. I've understood that. It's like, well, I'm kind of hot tonight. Let's see if this fucking goes in.
Yeah.
And okay, darn it, then go back and score again. So yeah, it's been a fantastic career, obviously, and it's been fun to watch. And like I said, it was not even on anybody's radar, at least wasn't mine. We never talked about it at the start of this deal.
No, I mean,
and then you're like, oh shit, and he just keeps. The crazy one is like Elias. I never would have put Elias Harris as number 4 of all time scoring at Gonzaga. Just never would have. All those names I mentioned before would have been ahead of him, and that's not a knock. But I was like, oh fuck, Elias was number 4. Holy shit,
Yeah,
he was close to mine. Like fuck, holy shit, I didn't know Elias was. But anyway, yeah. So I think he's got a chance, like you said, is 20, 25 points a game in that range.
Yeah,
he could do. And then here's the kicker to a lot of that. Here's a good question, and our audience can ponder it themselves. If he's close, do you think Fuey says, like in blowouts, because we're going to have a couple more, we should, does he leave him in? Or does he pull him because Fuey's always scared of injuries, which it's the right thing to do, but also like if you're a senior and you're trying to break a record, does he pull him or does he leave him in some of these games an extra 3 minutes and allow him to, maybe get 6 more points to get to 32 one night when he's got 26, and that makes a difference.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
But honestly, I was surprised that he went back in the last game. Like, I know it was, what was it?
No, but
was it 13 points? Were we only up by 13
yeah,
points?
we were only up 13. So you never take,
yeah.
You know what the counter to that is always?
What's that?
If you're playing your starters, I'm keeping mine until you wave the white flag and pull yours. I'm not pulling mine.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't understand that, and they're like, "Well, and it's like, no, man, that's just how it goes at this level of basketball. If you're still playing with your guys, I'm leaving my guys out there too. Once you wave the white flag and start putting your walk-ons, I'll pull mine.
Yeah,
I'll do mine right away. But that's kind of the unwritten rule, and a lot of people, like, I guess the casual fan doesn't see that, or they'll be like, they're trying to rub it in. It's like, no. If your guys are in, like, we've seen crazy shit happen before. I'm not putting in. And then also, like, with the Ken Palm rankings, they'd look at, like, efficiency ratings too. So this is no offense, but, like, if you put in, like, Rem Bakamis from years ago or some of the walk-ons and you have a 30-point lead and then it goes down to 19, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
and it's a real thing.
It affects your Ken Palm.
Exactly. Yeah. So, like, it sucks for those guys, but, like, you can't just always, worry about embarrassing somebody, and it's never usually that. But that'll be interesting to see, like, because Fury doesn't care about records as far as, like, individual players,
Right.
But if somebody will pull him aside and be like, "Hey, Drew's like 100 points away, or whatever. Maybe we fucking leave him in and throw him the ball. And if the other players know it, like, if we're up 20 with 4 minutes to go, like, hey, every time down, fucking throw it to Drew and just shoot it every time. I don't care."
Yeah. Yeah, I think as we get closer to the end of the season, I think it's definitely going to be on the top of a lot of everyone's minds if it's going to happen, especially if he gets close to the Frank's number.
Yeah.
Like, it's going to be one of the biggest talks of the season. And it is funny that we weren't talking about it earlier in the season, just because I think
I had no fucking idea.
I had no idea either. Yeah.
I had no idea. And I heard about it on the radios. He's past Kevin Pangos. I'm just, oh yeah. Like 18 something. I'm like, oh shit, he's right by me.
Yeah.
All right, he's gonna beat it. Good job, Drew. And
yeah. Thoughts on that? Do you have any? It's just, to you, him passing you, is that?
I don't give a shit.
Yeah.
To be honest, like, nobody. It's gonna happen eventually.
Right.
Number 3 is really not a worthy. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like,
Yeah, for sure.
Oh, it was number 3. Yeah. And so, like,
did you ever think of that when you were playing?
No.
Like,
honestly,
records?
no. I didn't even know who Frank Burgess was until I got a chance to meet him in Seattle. Really fine gentleman, great dude, but I didn't even know, like, who he was and the history of that, and and then, like, even, like, some of Stockton's records, like, guys beat Stockton's record. You know what I'm saying? So you're just like, well, whatever, man. What are you gonna do?
Yeah.
But yeah, I never, honestly, like, never looked at a program like, I want to get to this. Like, nobody really. All-time scoring leader and, like, rebounder, that's pretty cool. But, like, if you're in the top 5, it's all the same.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's whatever. I don't know. I know that sounds funny, but
I think records are meant to be broken. They're fun. They're fun to look at, and
the one record I'd like to fucking throw out is GSL all-time leading scorer in the high school one.
Right.
Yeah, that's the one I always tell, like, my daughters, and, like, when I was coaching at Meade, I'm like, hey, I used to do, like, we do trivia sometimes, or, like, basketball talk, and one time I was like, who's the all-time leading scorer in GSL? And the kids were like, and I'm like, me, fucking idiots. And, like, what, really? And I'm like, yeah. And I did it in 3 years. You know what I mean? I throw that out there too. I only played varsity 3 years. So, like, that stuff is fine. But, like, number 3 at Gonzaga, it's like, somebody's going to break it.
Yeah.
And obviously I didn't get the Franks, and nobody really cares. The assist one was cool for Santangelo because he beat John. So maybe I'm overstepping, but I could tell Matt was a little bit upset when Perkins broke that one. Not in a negative way, but he was like, damn, I like having that, having that record. It's a pretty cool record for a lot of great point guards that have gone through there and played 4 years, right? So when Perk broke that one, I was like, oh, Matt's probably not very happy about it. He's going to say he is, but he's probably like, fuck.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's pretty neat for Drew. I'm rooting for him to break it. I think it's kind of cool just because it'll be a modern deal. And nothing against Frank Burgess, but a modern player with how many great players we've had. And, it'd be a great thing for him. And he'll go down as the greatest big of all time in Gonzaga, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I mean, it's...
Yeah, to put in perspective, Frank Burgess set this record from 1958 to 1961.
Yeah.
So
no 3-point line.
No 3-point line, yeah.
Yeah, no, he fucking could score it, obviously.
Yeah.
It was a different era back then, but, it's when people are like, well, playing against plumbers, it's like, nah, you still got to fucking go out and score the sucker. And, a lot of 40-point games and blah, blah, blah. So, yeah, Frank was obviously a fantastic player. Ended up becoming a judge in, I think, King County. Good dude.
Yeah.
Like, he was awesome when I met him. He was really nice and gave me some words of encouragement. Like, it was an honor to meet him. He's a cool guy. Because they were talking about, well, you'll get to that if you stayed another season. And obviously, that wasn't a part of my deal or whatever, but it would have been on the radar. Probably would have got to it.
Yeah.
In theory. But like I said, it's cool if Drew can get to that. It'll be interesting to see. Like I said, if we keep playing the way we're playing, which we're offensively playing fantastically, these last few games, if he stays in games longer,
Yeah.
and I know Fuey doesn't like that, but also like if it's a 4-year guy, the guy's been in the trenches for you, what's taking him out at the 8-minute mark? What's the difference taking him out to 5.5? Knock on wood again.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's what you're gambling.
Yeah.
It's hard. I remember I've heard college football, coaches talking about when their guys are going for the Heisman, how much it changes their coaching. And what I mean by that, they'll be like, well, we'll have a 2nd and 5 at the goal, 2nd and goal from the 5, instead of handing it off, we'll let the guy try to throw a couple fade routes so he can get some touchdowns.
Right.
And they're like, sometimes it bites you in the ass because you call the game differently. But also, if your guy wins the Heisman, it's really great for your program. Your recruiting and ball for your kid, ball. You know what I mean? But it'll be interesting if he has to kind of run into that because I'll laugh a little bit. But
well, I imagine too, like there has to be some of this that as the season progresses, like there's going to be a lot of talk of him being, the National Player of the Year as well.
Yeah.
So like there's going to be that too.
I don't even know
like
who would be considered right now. I don't even know who's would be in the running. Sheway hasn't been great. Kid from Kentucky that won it last year. Nobody's popping in my head. And I think Drew's like the most visible, you know what I mean? And senior, maybe the Edey kid from Purdue because they're on number 1 team in the country. It's
Edey. There's Trace Jackson Davis in Indiana. Don't really know much about his Jalen Wilson Jr. at Kansas. Yeah, none of these players are really sticking out to me.
Yeah,
so
it'll be interesting.
It'll be really interesting. On to WCC play.
Yeah, it's been it's been a pretty good year for the WCC to start. I think it's more balanced and the meat of the league is better, if that makes sense. Portland's 7-8, Pacific's 8-9, and then I think San Diego's right around 500 as well. But St. Mary's is 12-4. BYU's 12-5. Santa Clara, we're going to play coming up 13-4. USF is 11-6. LMU's 11-5. We got to remember this league got 3 bids last year. Ourselves, St. Mary's, and then San Francisco got on a large. So my point is, I think this is going to be one of the more competitive league runs that we've had in years past. I'm talking 5 years past. I think it's going to be more fun, more enjoyable to watch. I don't think there's going to be as many layups for us. Obviously, I've talked about it at length, but we're good. We're not as lethal. So I think some of these games are going to be more competitive, which from a fan standpoint, I think it's more fun. Definitely from a broadcaster standpoint, it's more fun to call. I mean, way better. So this first trip is going to be a tough one. Santa Clara is tough to play at home. They call their fans the Rough Riders or whatever, and they kind of pack it in there, and they do this funny thing. I don't know if they do it anymore. They probably can't. They used to do like a shower curtain thing, and then when you're shooting a free throw, they put somebody behind it, and then where you're doing something like highly inappropriate, usually in sexual undertone or something.
Right.
You know what I mean? It was kids being kids.
Right, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like funny college shit.
Yeah.
And they used to do that, and it used to fuck guys up at the free throw line. I used to love watching. It's just funny. You know what I'm saying? Like funny pictures or, a mascot doing something highly inappropriate. But they pack it out. It's kind of their big game of the year. And then for some reason at San Francisco, we've had close games there the last 5 years. They've always been wins. So when people look back at the history, but it's like, even if sometimes we win by 10, but that's not, it ain't 10-point ball game. You know what I'm saying? We make free throws down the stretch, but we've had some nail biters. There was one with, I think Rui's crew had against when Todd Golden was the head coach there, or it might have been Kyle Smith, but Golden was on staff that we should have lost. There's been games. So that's going to be an interesting first road trip. And I've told you, like I just said, Santa Clara's the 13-4 and USF's 11-6. So it's definitely a better league, top to bottom, than years past. St. Mary's is always there. BYU was 5-5 at one point, and so they've done an excellent job of rattling off 7 straight wins. It was talking like, holy shit, what's going on with the program? And then they've pulled it together. Mark Pope's done a good job of kind of getting that program back on track. But it's their last year, and they've never won a WCC title, which is funny.
That is funny.
It is funny. It's hilarious. And then they're going to the Big 12 next year, and that'll be, I don't know how that, I just don't understand that. I get that move for football, but it's going to be interesting for basketball for them. Not saying they can't compete, but that's a different recruiting battle now that you have to do. And you're going to have to open the doors up a little bit to the type of player that you bring into that program that they haven't in the years past. So it'll be interesting to see if they do that or they stay with what they got. And because it's a competitive league, and BYU's had success, but that's a really hard league to win in consistently. So it'll be interesting to see how they fare next year, but obviously good this year. So, in conclusion, this league is very good, and it's not just me trying to, hype up the show or whatever. Just listen so you can get the WCC breakdown. It's a lot better than it has been in the last 5 years. It was good last year, same this year is my point. It's like these teams are starting to schedule better. They're starting to go out and win games in the preseason. I mean, and they're playing Murderers Row schedules, but they also understand, like especially St. Mary's, you got to play in some of these holiday tournaments and play tougher schedules. So then if you don't win the league title, you got a chance to get in. You got to go challenge yourself. You are good enough to play quad 1, quad 2 type of games. Go win them, and you'll be rewarded for it. So
I was going to point out USF, they beat Arizona State.
Yeah, by 30.
37 points when they were ranked, when Arizona was ranked 25th.
Yeah.
And I mean that they're definitely a dangerous team.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's going to be an interesting first road trip for us. Coach V always calls them business trips, and it's so true. But that's a fun road trip too. San Francisco is a beautiful city, and then obviously the Walnut Creek Bay area is great too for Santa Clara. It's just nice.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see how we do. Looking forward to it, but I think it's a perfect start. Obviously, blowing out Pepperdine to the league season is a perfect start for some of our guys for individual accolades. Julian Strother, I think, got 20 in that game, played well. And then Drew Timmy had the 35 or whatever we were just talking about at length. So it's a great start to the season. I think it's going to be a competitive league. Obviously, we should win it. I should never say going to, but we should win it. But I wouldn't be surprised how do I say this? If we go undefeated, wouldn't be surprised. But if we have 1 or 2 losses, wouldn't be surprised either.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because it's better. I've talked about our team. There's really good coaching in this league too that can game plan better than some of these other teams that don't play us every year, that don't game plan in the correct way, in my opinion, against us. And so, yeah, it's going to be fun. But thanks for coming on and helping me out with this show. And
No problem.
we'll be back, next week with another, recap of what transpired in the games coming up. And then, we'll get some, I'm trying to get another guest on. I think I got coming on.
Awesome.
It's going to be somebody pretty cool. So
Cool.
thank you to our sponsors, and thanks for listening.